prospects. I am delighted. I am excited. I am off the charts. You know me, guys. I've been waiting for this interview for quite a while. To get this young man on with his schedule is very hard, and we have him tonight. I have the honor to introduce to you Raptors 905 Vice President of Basketball and Franchise Operations, Courtney M. Charles. This man speaks from the heart, not only at what he does with his new position at Vice President of Raptors 905, but to youth. And he's on the show to share his heart, his mission with his new position, and take it away. So welcome, Courtney. Welcome, my love.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Oh my God, it's a pleasure, hon. So you have graced Future Prospects twice when you were the director of operations of the Toronto Raptors, but now you have a new position, my love. So I did text you, and I think we said a congratulations, but I'm going to say it on air. Congratulations, Courtney.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, my love. So how are you settling into your position?
All is coming well. I mean, it's been just over a couple months now that I've been able to start learning and embracing and taking in the new role. Excited to be out in Mississauga with our basketball fans there. It was unfortunate as the promotion did happen as we were in the playoffs with our Raptors team, and unfortunately that did not go our way. But to be able to see something new and fresh and to take the challenge on of growing the game in Canada and having people understand the G League, there's only excitement to lead this team to continuing to win and to really become a staple for young people to at least strive to, not only on the court, but off the court and in different multiple positions, broadcasting, marketing, ticket sales. We would love for people to start realizing that this is one of the vessels that are going to help you get to your goals.
That's right. Now, I know of your life, Courtney, because you shared it on Future Prospects in the past when we were in the studio, not on Zoom. But if you can just share a little bit of your life, because it is so precious, and those are pearls of wisdom for young people watching the show.
Well, I think just to summarize it as quick as possible, I think, you know, just dreaming big is the one thing that we always want to encourage our young people to do, and to plan and to organize what it is they want to try to achieve. I think, especially as Canadians, we can become complacent and we can settle because we only know what we know. And I think the US and other parts of the world have been big dreamers. And I think it's something that we have to educate our youth to, you know, think outside of the box sometimes. It's great to be become a police officer. It's great to become a doctor and a nurse. But at some point, can you do that in sports? And that's kind of the realm that I took, where I had a passion for basketball, I had a passion for business, and I wanted to find a way to make it a career. At some point, I can be a great athlete, but won't be an athlete forever. And I've got to educate myself, and I took the combination of the two, and here we are today, continuing to fulfill the passion, but continuing to learn. And COVID has definitely taught us that, because it doesn't stop. As much as you need to stay home and you need to be safe and take care of your family, there's still work to be done, and there's still hope to dream. So we continue.
Well, you know something, Courtney, you shared a lot just within that short time, but I'm just reflecting back on our past conversations on Future Prospects. And what stood out to me is that looking back and reading back through your bio and your history, you did an internship with the Raptors, correct? And you worked your way through it, and you volunteered. I remember meeting you down there, and you kept on people, you were just meeting people, they were noticing you, and you the volunteer here, and you were just seeing them grow, and you were mentoring them through your words. So to the youth watching the show that respect you and cherish your words, why is it so important for internships as well as volunteering?
I mean, definitely internships is to build, you know, some credibility, to build some experience. I think we all go through the educational process and start to feel that we are trending towards what it is we want to do, and we build a confidence. But at some point, the real world and the work that needs to be done, there is no true trial and error if you get a job. It's the internship is almost that opportunity to give you a little bit of a sight in. You're not going to be in all the board meetings. You're not going to be able to see all the things behind the scenes, but as a volunteer, you'll be able to see a little bit of the pace, and you'll be able to see a little bit of the workload. And for me, it's a fair place for you to learn, and then also build a philosophy and to build an understanding of, is this something you really want to do? Because at this point, you're not obligated, because it will come to an end. And I think from my experience, as I've shared before, it was something that I was totally excited about. And the reality was the person who hired me got fired 20 days later. So that was the true reality of, is sports really what you want to get into because it's competitive, And right. I think a lot of us sit and watch it on TV and see the entertainment side of it. But these are people trying to prove that they are the best at what they do. And in a lot of jobs, I don't think we have that mindset. I think every time I've worked in a job, the mindset has always been the best. If it was at McDonald's, I wanted the best customer service. I wanted you to have the best experience. I wanted your food to be the best you've ever tasted. And for me, that's the mindset that an internship gives you, because it starts to challenge you on what it is you want to say you can do to present yourself as the best. And volunteering is no different. I think volunteering is almost a opportunity that you should have to do. It's something that you have to give back. If you've got time, that's more valuable sometimes than even money. To spend time with people and to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they have things that they need. Sometimes they're not capable of getting it. Volunteering and doing anything for others is key. So for me, they go hand in hand, because they're both experiences that help you to understand a little bit better of who you are.
When you look back at it though, Courtney, like you look back at, we've had our talks, and again, it's future prospect, but we have talked before. And when you look back, because young people look at you now and you're in your position, you've worked your way extremely hard. It wasn't something that was given to you. You worked for it very hard, which sometimes young people look and they say, well, okay, something, it's luck, but you didn't. You worked at Walmart, you did McDonald's, you worked. So did you ever think there was a part that you didn't think it was going to happen? Did you ever think? How were the challenges through that?
To be honest, I dreamt so big that if I was going to fail, it was going to start early. Okay. I wasn't dreaming of doing things at the age I am now. I was dreaming of doing things as a teenager. So one of the first things that I've shared before, and I'll share it again, because I think a lot of young people will see the excitement. And, I've got 2 young boys who are growing, and I can see the change in them already. And I know it has to do with some of the things I'm about to say. So for me, once I, started to feel a little more confident in becoming a young adult, because the transition does happen pretty quickly from, an 8-year-old to a 13-year-old, you kind of make this jump of, I think I know what I'm doing. For me, it was really, I wanted a car. I wanted a car when I was 16. That was my, call it an early dream. And at the time, it wasn't something totally attainable. Parents weren't willing to make that dream come true for me. They felt there was other things they would like to instill and build a foundation for, which I totally accepted and appreciated. And I think communication with that was very important, because they were able to show me other things that are important that I can look back now and say they were pretty smart on about it. But to see a car and to know that I wanted, let's just say, a Lamborghini, for example, when you're 13 and you start looking at the numbers, you start really realizing how money works, and you start understanding value. And these are the things sometimes that if you're not taking the early indications of where you need to mature and grow up, you kind of can become a little bit lost in it, and you don't understand the value of a dollar. So I started understanding that I had to start saving, and I had to start preparing. I have to get my driver's license. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have a driver's license, you can't drive. And in Canada, you can't buy a license. You've got to go earn it. To your key words, right? So I had to put in the work, and then that perfectionist starts coming out. Well, when I go to get my driver's license, I've got to ace it. I've got to be the best person to get a driver's license, and not have any mistakes, because I love driving, and I can't be that person that's not a good driver. So that's when you start realizing the preparation had to come in, and I think that's where you start maturing as a young person, because I had to start realizing, hey, I might not be able to go out with my friends today. I've got to study for driving tests. I've got to start taking things serious, because my driver instructor told me, hey, you're driving a certain way that needs to be better. So I had to start paying attention to detail. And then eventually I had to start looking at ways to make money so that I could eventually try to buy a car. And I had to make a realistic goal of what car that was, because I didn't just want a car. I wanted a certain type of car. And I had something that I wanted that represented me. And again, it's amazing because nothing had to do with materialistic. It wasn't for me to say to my friends that I had a car. It wasn't for me to drive somewhere and act like I was cool. It was something that I just saw that kind of fulfilled me in the experience of what a car is. And to me, it was like art. And I loved, the engine and the sound and the look and obviously the feel. So these are things that I think, as I would say to young people, is, find your passion, find what it is that you feel you can pay, a ton of attention to and give a lot of your heart to, and start doing that and start realizing the cost to it, the effect it can have on others, and start applying it so that you can be held accountable on if you actually reach your goals.
They're blessed to have you there, not only with the Toronto Raptors of what you did, but something, Courtney, I've told you this before, and I'll keep telling you this. I will keep telling you this. They are blessed to have you. They truly are. They really are. And on that note, my love, we're going to go to break. We'll be right back with Courtney Charles, Vice President of the Raptors 905. Welcome back. We're the future prospects. Vice President, Raptors 905, Courtney Charles. I love to say that. I do. I really, really do. My love, that was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Words of wisdom, pearls of wisdom, whatever it is that you can take and apply in their lives. The uncertainty of developing a career is something that young people right now, post-secondary, school, they look at you. So you are a role model for them, Courtney. What is your insights on that? The uncertainty of a career. Is it going to happen for me? Am I studying right? Is it look too big?
Well, I think the part that I was able to really understand when it came to the educational piece was just understanding what it was that I wanted out of education. I think sometimes we have mindsets of just completing something or doing it to say we're participating in something. But at some point, I started looking at the school and what the school could do for me. And for me, I had a track scholarship, right? And I had options and I had choices. And maybe not everybody has that. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, if you are going to school, what is it that you want from the school? And you have to make sure you're building it that you can take something away from it. It's not just for you to go sit in a class and eventually have a certificate. I think that's the part that everybody sees hanging on people's walls. But at some point, you have to hold the school accountable to make sure that they're giving you the insight and the knowledge. And that means you have to choose one that provides what it is you're looking for. And sometimes people are afraid to go away from home. They don't necessarily want to travel far. They have certain things. And that's what you have to really prioritize. If family is important to you, then you've got to figure out what is the school that's close that meets your needs. And you've got to then try to balance out the two to make sure that you are keeping your family close, but you're also holding the school accountable for giving it what you need. And then you've got to assert yourself, and you've got to make sure you're giving everything to what it is that you have decided to go to the school for, and really just try to be the best, as I've kind of mentioned before. And I think, let's just clarify being the best. Being the best doesn't mean that you're going to be number one. It means that you've given everything you can, and that you've not left anything for an excuse of sorts that, you know, you could have tried harder or you could have done better. Instead, you're just giving it your all, and you've committed. You've committed to make sure that you're seeing this through, and you're willing to get through the end. Because 4 years as an undergrad is not easy. 2 years for a master's is not much easier. And your career is going to be a lifetime. So at some point, the numbers are sometimes easy to you to look at and say, I'll do this for this period of time, and I'll do this for a period of time. But at some point, you're trying to find what it is you want to do for the rest of your time. And you've got to figure out what that passion is that you can then fulfill it. Because again, it seems like forever, but unfortunately, we're not here forever.
That's right, my love. It is so, so true. The mental health to it now, we're dealing with COVID, right? We're in a pandemic. So students aren't like you and I ourselves, like when we used to go to school, you can walk around, go to a pub, go here. You're in a room, you're at home with a laptop and a professor and your teachers. How is it when you look at youth? What kind of nuggets that you can give to them in navigating through this? Because you were in America at the time with the Raptors. And that in itself, they were in a bubble, they were confined, they couldn't have their families. So when you look at youth now, what is it that you can give to them in just words that you can help them through? Because it's hard, it's really hard. Some of them can get through it, Courtney, but some of them are challenging. They're challenged by just inside that bubble.
Well, I think the first thing, Joy, is the NBA did a fantastic job.
Yes.
Hats off to them, and all businesses that have had to continue to operate in these unfortunate times. You know, what an amazing thing to find ways to keep everything running as smooth as possible. And I think, you know, to our frontline essential workers, nurses, and so forth, huge thank you, because at some point, that's the one nugget that I want everybody to first realize is people still have to wake up and
right.
serve. And I think that's, you know, we've touched on the volunteer and we've touched on the internships, but when it comes to the real life, you have to realize that it's really stepping up and doing the work. There's right. no excuses, right? So that's the first part. The second part, which is interesting, is the test of the passion is really brought through during these times, especially. So yes. When we decided to go back to the bubble, not everybody was in favor. And to be honest, there wasn't enough money to pay some players to show up. And that's the reality of it. Right. So they love basketball, and we can say they love money if we just want to keep it to two things. But those two things weren't enough for them to leave their families during this pandemic. And that's the reality of where you have to make sure as a young person, you're not just doing things of choice, you're doing things because you've thought it through and you understand the circumstances. So for the people that don't want to go to work now, have you been saving, and have you put things in perspective that you can still survive and pay bills or to provide for your family? Because if you haven't, then during the pandemic, you can't have those choices. So for us, the reality was we've got to build this bubble that's safe. We've got to build it so that people can be there for an extended period of time. As we touched on, mental health, it's not going to be easy to go back to this, 500 square foot room with maybe no balcony and maybe a certain type of food that's being served over period of time. You're not able to get any of that mother or grandparents cooking. So these are things that I say to young people, what we think is, expected in this world, we have to make sure that we're preparing ourselves for opportunities that not always go our way. And that we have to eventually realize if what we're doing every day today is not what we truly want to do. We have to figure out when we're going to make that transition, and we've got to work on it. We've got to chip away at it slowly but surely. So that way, when you get into a scenario like we are in COVID, you're doing what you love, and it's not hard to continue to do it. And I think I've heard a lot during these times. These are the times to figure out what that is and start doing it, because
Right.
If we start picking up again, you don't want to be left behind because you decided to take an extended vacation.
I ask young people this all the time. Well said, Courtney. I ask young people this throughout the show since COVID came down in March, is that COVID has given myself a self-reflection. It's made me learn different things about myself. It's challenged me. I've been challenged before, but this has challenged me on a different platform. From yourself, has it given you a looking at yourself different? Has it challenged you, Courtney?
It definitely challenged me because I've realized I can't stop. For the first couple of days of COVID, just trying to understand and to know that you're now, virtually communicating and so forth. It was okay to have a couple of slower days and to, learn about Zoom and to learn about sharing content on these platforms and to do different things. But at some point, I'm going to start working on the house, and I'm going to start working on myself. And I'm going to start doing other things to the point that now my day is completely full. And that became a wake-up call to just who I am. And I think COVID has continuously taught me that you got to have balance. But at some point, it also showed me that during these times, I'm still going to find a way to do what I can to affect change and to communicate and educate young people and elder people. I think future prospects is a great term because at some point, the future is only what it is that you build and what you want it to be. And it's amazing because you can reach a certain age and you can still have dreams and goals. And those are future prospects of what it is you want to do and take. So I say that because at some point, my job is to motivate my mom to make sure that she's realizing she needs to do something today that's going to affect her 10 years from now. And as much as she thinks she doesn't need much more in life, or she doesn't really want to do much, there's still much more life to live. And for my grandparents, they're the inspiration because they don't stop either. And they've shown me how it's kept them active and healthy because at some point their minds and their bodies are totally in a place of function because they demand it,
That's right.
If the knee's a little wonky, it will slow them down a little bit. But at some point, that's only because they're trying to do more.
That's right.
The idea of what I want people to realize is let's do it while we can do it. There's things that will come with age that will slow you down already.
Trust me, I know that one. That's for sure. Oh my God. What's your outlet, my love? What's your outlet? What do you do to keep yourself going? Because young people look for that. Like, what I mean? They're trying to think of outlets. Like, what can I do?
I think the balance of again, and not to sound repetitive, but you've got to know, you've got to figure out what that outlet is. So it can be, it could be playing cards. It could be playing video games. It can be communicating to friends. It can be drawing and doing art of some sort. It could be washing the car. There's so many different things that we look at. I think there's the obvious that people look at, which is sometimes alcohol and cigarettes. And at some point, I tell people all the time, if you have a balance of that, then maybe that's your choice. But then the one way I like them to look at it is how much does it cost and what does it truly do for you? And to me, those are the type of things where I think we've got to get to a good place of telling people it's not wrong. You can do almost anything you want, but you got to have a balance of it. And you got to understand the perception of it. But at some point, know who you are, know where you want to go. I've got family members that will drive up and leave their car on the driveway because they'll know I'll wash it. And it's amazing, Joy, because I don't know where I get the energy from. Like, I don't know how I can do it, but I love to see the results of it. I love to see their faces after. And at some point, that ends up becoming the energy that I think I don't have that eventually shows itself. So I say that because a lot of times people think there has to be much more that comes from what your outlet is. But to me, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be simple. It could be monetary. It could be communication. It could be joy, pardon the pun, but the reaction from what someone will do based on the efforts or the work you put in. So for me, it's just really slowing down and figuring what that outlet is and maximizing it.
Can I ask you this before we go to break? We've only got 1 minute, and I want you just to share this real fast. You're a high achiever, aren't you? Like, you don't look here, you look here.
So I'll say this as quickly as I can.
Right.
I never truly thought I was a high achiever, because at some point you go through life just seeing things and thinking you can do it as well. So I never, I've never truly invented maybe anything, so I don't see myself that way. But I've definitely seen things that are maybe in other parts of the world that I don't see in Canada, and I challenge myself to maybe make that impact. And then I can tell you this, I'm definitely at a stage now where my kids have shown me that I have achieved some things, but I'm driving to achieve even more, because I need to set the bar as high as I can so they at least have something to try to keep reaching for. And that's kind of where I would say my outlet and my energy comes from, trying to be a high achiever.
That's why you're an amazing man, an amazing leader, and an amazing father. And on that note, we're going to digress and go to break and be right back with Courtney Charles, Vice President of the Raptors 905. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Future Prospects with Courtney Charles, Vice President of the Raptors 905. My love, awesome stuff. And I love it when you talk, because you just talk plain, if I can say that. You know what I mean? You don't candy code it, because there's really nothing to candy code. It's life. You go through stuff, and it all depends on how you choose it, how you walk it, right? We've had many conversations. I know this is dear to you because you really believe in it. Every single thing you do is a brand. When you leave your house, you're a brand. So why is it important to be branded right and to be careful how you brand yourself within your career?
Yeah, I think just before we get into branding it right and branding it for your career, I think we just take a second to just talk about the brand itself. I think the one thing when I talk to young people, I always want them to realize is when you first were in class and you can remember the first time the teacher took attendance and they asked if somebody was here, that's when the brand started, because that brand gets a report card.
Right.
And that's where the brand really needs to start. And that's when you need to realize that you are among a group of people that could all be equal, but what are you going to do to step out and be better, be the best, to grow and develop, and your name truly ends up being the brand that you're starting with. And at some point it can lead into many different things of what that becomes. But at some point you want people to know a bit of who you are and what it is that you plan to impact while you're here with us on Earth. So at some point, I think when it comes to the world that I've been into, continually teaching education is the one brand that I try to teach young people. Have yourself be someone that's willing to learn and continue to learn, and apply that in whatever facet that it is that you choose. And then from my world, especially with sports, it's trying to be competitive and realizing that you can then not only brand yourself, but then you can partner with brands and try to help brands go to the next level the same way they would try to help you get to a next level. So for me, that's where it all starts. When you're trying to build yourself, you're trying to build a brand, you're trying to network, all of these things are going to go hand in hand, but it's going to start with who you are and what your philosophies are and what the end up perception of what people think you are is what you are trying to either maintain, change, grow, develop. and then eventually foster to a point that you have people that are following it and trying to do even better than you did.
Awesome, awesome. The importance of networking, shaking the hand, looking directly, not what, hey, there's a time and place for a certain language and there's a certain place to deliver. So when you say now networking, a lot of young people, as well as if it be the Raptors 905 within their circle, it's still networking. It's still keeping it going. Why is that so important? Because a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of young people don't understand the power of networking, Courtney.
Yeah, I think networking is interesting. I think, I would almost take it to even our platform that we're using now, right? So you have Zoom and you have WebEx and you have these different ways of communicating. And
Right.
You have some people that may never come on camera. They may never come off of mute. And at some point, it's not that you have to be the loudest and it's not that you have to share the most information, but you do have to find a way to participate. And you do want to be able to eventually have people know who you are and what your role is and what it is that you contribute. And I think that's an example of where, again, finding that balance, right? If you are on camera, you don't want to be on camera eating. That's not how you want to be remembered. So maybe that's when you do turn your camera off.
Right.
So I say that because networking is the same. People like to show up in a place when we were in normalcy, but they don't want to look people in the eye and they don't want to shake people's hands. Because at some point, that's the same way of what they're doing now virtually, which is they're finding ways not to participate, but you just got to make sure you put yourself in a position to participate for the way you want to grow. And I think that's an interesting part as well with the brand and networking. It's okay if you are not trying to become the president of something and you have no problems being the frontline essential worker. At some point, you can be a nurse that comes in and does everything else and doesn't need a big intro, maybe like a doctor. But at some point, be the best nurse you can be and build what that looks like and help other nurses do that.
Great stuff, Courtney. Accountability is a big thing because if it be school, showing up for practice, listening to your coach, being accountable to you, being the vice president of the Raptors 905 within any organization, accountability is key because some people don't realize how valuable it is when you're branding yourself, when you're networking or follow up on a job or a resume or whatever. Accountability. Courtney Charles.
Yeah, I mean, let's take it back one more step. I mean, accountability starts with at home, all right? My son, who was barely really mute when he was younger, silent when he went out in public, he now can't stop talking. And at some point, the accountability is great to see you, communicating and participating, but you can't affect your class. You can't put yourself in a place where you're disturbing others from learning. And I share that because the accountability needs to start at home. There's so many different things that need to be understood in this world, and our parents are our teachers. And we saw that during COVID, which is, when you had to teach your own child, what was that attention span? What was the attention to detail? What was the accountability on if they didn't do it or not? We hold our teachers at a high level of expectation to teach our kids to grow and to learn. But when it was brought back to us, it just reminded us that's where it starts. And it's not to pass it off. And I think, thankfully, we were able to put our kids back into a safe place of school. But for some people, they wanted to put them back into a place that they thought they truly were going to learn. And I think that's the accountability that first needs to be understood. I say it to players all the time, and I don't say it in a way to scare them or to make them feel fearful, but parenting is almost the one thing that you're not given a book to read or a license to earn. And unfortunately, that's the accountability that needs to probably tighten up somehow in this world, because as humans, we need to be able to foster the young ones that are brought into this world to understand the expectation and the accountability that awaits them from a standard of living. And for me, accountability is everything to being the best that you can be.
Right. So you know something, when you said, well said, my love, but there's something that you said, that you're a high achiever and accountable. In a sense, with young people, or if it be the Raptors 905 or anything goal setting, sometimes in life, you need a parent to go to and to talk to. Because when you say parents are your first teachers in your lives, we
Yes.
were there for Michael, right? So we had to answer his questions. Sometimes it wasn't easy. And as they get older, sometimes when you look at life, it challenges you in different ways. And that's why you said that so well. There was something that Messiah Jury said about you. He says, wherever you go, and don't quote me on the words, but I'm just trying to remember what he said, is that you make people, Courtney is really really excellent at so many things, but his commitment is many. He has many different commitments and gifts, but he lifts them up. How do you feel about that when you hear the president of the Toronto Raptors talk about yourself, Courtney? Because I've always seen it, but that is very touching.
Masai's a great teacher for that. Masai has been able to establish over these last 7+ years here on just identifying humans to be the best that they can be, and to take everyone from male, female, black, white, and make them be the best, and
Right.
to find a way, as we touched on, teach them about accountability, teach them about branding, and he helps build a succession plan to have you realize where you can go from where you are now, and to keep you uplifted and keep your spirits at a high level, because we're not going to win every game.
Right.
And that's the trial of life. You're not going to win every game. You are going to fall down, but it's how you get back up. It's how quickly you try to recover the missed footings of what may have happened. Again, I look back at parenting, and you look at a child that learns how to walk. At some point, you're there to guide them. You're there to help them. But at some point, you stand back and you watch them and you let them go. And even when you think that they are now solidified, they still will fall. And at some point, you need to be there to kind of give them hope again, and you need to encourage them. Sometimes you have to clean up the bruise a little bit, and so forth. And that's where Masai has been great. He's been able to challenge us. He's been able to push us in the right direction. He gives you hope to believe, and we've done that. And winning a championship. When we talk about dreaming big, and you talk about being a high achiever, I definitely will pat myself on the back at that point, because an NBA championship is not easy. An NBA championship for a Canadian team is not easy. And an NBA championship and what it's done for Canada and for the game of basketball, when you look at COVID right now, it's not easy. We will not be able to say we can bring out all those people ever again for a parade the way we did. And to me, those are the things that kind of solidify why you work for what you work for. But truly, you will never know until you get there. And that's an example of where you've got to have somebody like Masai to continue to push you. And then I look at myself as someone to push others. When I look at other people, I'm here to help you keep going. And that's hopefully why he was able to say the words that he did.
Well, hopefully, and did, because you are a beacon of light to many people, Courtney. And I've told you that. There's many times that I'll reach out to people at different levels and I don't hear, but you always take the time. You come down from that platform and you look people in the eye and you work with them. And that is a gift, a true gift. And I thank you, my love. You're welcome. We'll be right back, guys. We're just going to digress, go to break, and be right back with Courtney Charles, Vice President of the 905 Raptors. prospects with Raptors 905 Vice President Courtney Charles. Courtney, you speak from the heart, my friend, and you're real. You're real. This is something that you and I have talked about. It's something that woke us up with George Floyd. Started when we turned on the TV, and I was so glad the basketball hit the airwaves again. I was freaking out. I was like, oh, come on, guys, come on, let's get this going. And when I seen the Milwaukee Bucks, as well as the 905, as well, not 905, the Raptors took charge and stood up for Black lives that matter. This is a conversation we have to keep relevant because there is systemic racism. There's indifference, and young people are embracing it from all races. But from a professional as yourself, in a very high profile and a very high responsibility, what are your words when you've seen that, when the players took charge?
It's a heavy one, and I'm glad that we are at a point that we are able to have these discussions and not feel that we will be put in a position of sharing and talking. It's really interesting, and I think the perspective for me, especially as a Canadian, is an interesting one, because as a Canadian growing up and always seeing the U.S. and thinking that they are the bigger brother where everything is probably better and greater and done successfully. I never would have really known there was racism or systemic issues, because when I went to school, I saw everybody. You know, there was every type of race, there was every type of ethnic group, and to be honest, everything was understandable. Like if somebody had to go pray, you know, you didn't. It wasn't necessarily something to make fun of. You understood it. You seemed to know their parents, so it wasn't too far fetched of, you know, somebody had to go home and why. So for me, when I got to the U.S., these are the type of things that I started realizing were not as successful as I thought. You know, I saw police pulling over Black people, specifically in areas that I never truly understood. You know, I could be in the car when I was in university and we could be going somewhere and someone would say, well, we can't turn down that street.
That's
and
right.
I couldn't understand what that meant. Like, it's a street. It's you turn down it if you can, if you need to, if it's shorter, if it's faster, if it's, but at some point for them, it's what's safer.
Right.
And it wasn't safe from necessarily someone trying to do harm. It was from police potentially doing harm to you. And that was kind of the true wake up call to, you know, what is happening. And I remember after my first year of school, I never took pride in being Jamaican. I never took pride in being Canadian and Antiguan and some of these ties that I have. But when I got back to the States, I almost, you know, went a little bit overboard, and I had these flags on the wall of Canada and Jamaica and so forth, because at some point, I almost wanted people to realize, as the fastest person in this school, I'm not American and I'm okay with it.
Right.
Because at some point, it kind of felt sometimes, because I wasn't American, that there's no way I could be the fastest person at this school in the US. And that is an example where I realized I had to get pride for who I am and where I'm from. And that's when I started realizing that the US was not as united as we've kind of heard that as of late, because they are not as accepting for all, and that they have some work to do when it comes to identifying how they have treated people equally and with humanity. So for me, Black Lives Matter really struck a chord, because that's what it needs to be globally. We all need to be treated fairly. We need to be treated equally. And at some point, a Black life in the US has not had value. And the one tidbit that I would share that I've challenged all young people to understand, and especially Black people, is life insurance. And I share that because you automatically have now a value to your life. And a lot of people will say, well, where are you going with that? And I will say, if two Black people were killed by the same cop, that had life insurance, the insurance company would be the first people to investigate these deaths. And that's the value of where you can see lives matter, but to who? And at that point, that's not what makes it right, but that starts to show you that you have to have a value to your life. And you will then eventually have more people fight for your life. And I share that because at some point it's something that gets overlooked. It's something that I know in our community needs to be better, because at some point, if you value your life and you value your family's life, having life insurance would leave a value for your family to then also survive and to fight to keep your life alive. And these are just little things that Black Lives Matter has been able to really resonate and hit home with. And at some point, it's not to be lost on it just being Black lives. I think it needs to be emphasized that it's for all lives, but we need to emphasize that at times there are certain people that are not being treated equally, and that's why it ends up being specifically Black lives.
As a father, a parent, as well as myself, we have two children. We have children that are Black. And one parent said to me, it was a family we had on the show, the Hoffman family. And she says that, and he said, Clayton and Katie said that they fear today that if we don't work on change, on policies or initiatives or something to create something for the future of our children. Do you have concerns when you look at your children? Do you have any fears, Courtney?
100%. Have fears because technology has changed. You know, young people want to have phones, and the access of what they can view, hear, is tough because you don't know how they will compute it. You don't know how they will digest it, and then how will they share it, right? We talked about communication earlier. If you see something, someone's smoking, and you question why, some people may be afraid to ask their parents that question because their parents may spend more time trying to figure out where they saw this and how they saw this, instead of eventually finding a way to digest that it is reality, it does happen, and you need to put yourself in a position to not see it anymore. So, be careful on the sites you're going to, or be careful of the access that you've allowed yourself. So for me, I'm also fearful of what seems to be the trend, which is, people want to have followers and people want to share information. But if you share the wrong thing, it can then backfire. And now the world thinks you are this person that you're not, because spell check didn't get the word right, or so forth. So I have fears of, innocent mistakes being blown out of proportion and almost putting people in a position that it's hard to recover from. So I have a ton of fears just from that alone. Let's not even talk about just walking outside right now and doing anything else. But that's the type of stuff where the fears of making mistakes has gotten a little bit worse, I feel, and not necessarily better.
Right. When you talk very well and you talk from your heart, which I've always said, and I'll keep on saying it, but this is a hard subject, but it isn't, because it's something that needs to be talked about all the time. Like young people within my small community here, when we had a show on, it was a young white man, and he didn't even know how to talk about it. He didn't know how to relate to it. Like, he didn't know how to, like, is there a problem? And stuff like that. So it was really hard for him. But myself asking you, at the profile that you're in, a very high profile, what is it that the Raptors 905 would like to put as a message out there throughout your platform?
I mean, for Raptors 905, I think our story is very telling, which is we want to produce the best players for the NBA and for our Raptors specifically. So we take on all talent and are willing to give them as many resources as possible to become the best players they can be. And we're going to treat every player that is on our team equally. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to do that for our staff. We're going to do that for our broadcasters and our game ops people and our security. You know, how do we help them all achieve to get to the level that they want to get to? And I think that's the one thing that I've always loved about basketball is that basketball has proven that it can bring many people to the table with many different talents, and that you can all be successful by working together. And that, for me, is something that 905 wants to be able to do even more than maybe the Raptors might be able to, because let's just be honest, the Raptors got a couple more games. They're on the road a bit more. They're a little bit more high profile, so they're not always able to get out in the community and do certain things. Well, 905, we need to do that. We need to make sure we're out more. We need to make sure that people have more access. And we've got to make sure that we are showing the different development tools and ways for people to get there by participating in university programs, by being in the community and talking to young people like yourself and reaching out to other future prospects. Because at some point, it's still the game of basketball, and we still are trying to be the best we can be, which makes us no different than Toronto Raptors.
Do you have faith in the future when it comes to racism? Do you have faith to believe that change is coming?
Again, when you're trying to be the best you can be, that's the only thing you can have is hope and have faith. I think Muhammad Ali had a great quote, and don't quote me on it, but at some point, his father was a young man, and his father told him that it will get better. And eventually, he got older, and he had to tell his son, Muhammad Ali, it will get better. And Muhammad Ali got older, and he had to tell his kids, it will get better. So at some point, I don't think we stop that. But I think what we do need to do is make sure that we're finding a way to truly show that it's gotten better, and to show those steps, and to have our kids take the challenge on to make it better. It won't just happen because we want it to happen. We've got to actually make those impacts and make those change. And the other thing I'll share quickly, because my mom blessed me with it and I want to share it with others, was one time my mom said to me, I'm trying to give you everything I didn't have. And at some point it hit me, because if every parent said that, we sometimes are going to end up giving way too much. What we need to do is we need to build what it is that impacts change, teach that, challenge that, and continue to grow it. And that will be what it is we're giving that we didn't have.
Got it. Courtney, I love you, honey. You're coming back. Thank you for taking the time, Courtney.
Thank you. Appreciate all that you do.
You're welcome. God bless.